Good morning. So we need to stop for a second, whatever you're doing with the scrolling, and jump in because the topic I'm going to talk about is it's an edgy one. So I need you to pay attention. So let's just say that right now in the world, there is a lot of sexual assault language and sexual violence language. And there is, in general, a lot of violence against women anyways around the world. So what I wanted to do today with this discussion is to bring in the idea of sexual sovereignty and why that is so crucial when we're living in a world that isn't necessarily revering sexuality, isn't revering personal space of other people, isn't revering the body or even just our sensuality in general. So that's what I want to talk about today, is having a look at violence, assault, any kind of disrespect towards our bodies, towards our sexuality, and bring in the concept of sexual sovereignty to support you. So I can see some wonderful people joining. Hi Adri, hi Anne. Fantastic. So what I want to do right now is go into a couple definitions first, because there's been a debate lately of what is exactly sexual assault. So I just looked up on Google, what's the normal kind of general consensus around this. So let's define that first. So sexual assault is a sexual act in which a person is coerced or physically forced to engage against their will or non-consensual sexual touching of a person. Those are two different things. One is happening in the act of sex that's not consensual. The other is non-consensual sexual touching. That means grabbing any part of anyone's body, especially the ones we're associating with sexuality without their consent, is actually considered sexual assault. Okay, so we've got that definition. And the other definition that I want to make sure, again, online, I just said, what is group consensus around this? Sexual violence is the act committed against someone without the person freely giving their consent. Sexual violence is divided into the following types: completed or attempted forced penetration of a victim, completed or attempted alcohol or drug facilitated penetration of a victim. So in any regard, we have those definitions. So I don't know why there is a constant debate that if we touch someone that is not consensual, that it isn't assault or violence. And here's why I just want to draw the line right here. If we don't draw the line, then it gets really hard to navigate this world, and it gets really hard to start to feel safe and clear about our own boundaries, and powerful enough to still choose to be a sensual person, to still choose to be a sexual person, to still choose to have beautiful relationships when we want them. These are part of our human birthrights, and that's where sexual sovereignty will come in. I actually firmly believe that every person born on this planet is born sexually sovereign. And so let me define that for you. Sovereign means whole unto yourself. That means no one can actually define for you what is true and right for your own body and true and right for your own sexuality. And you're born with this. It's not something you need to earn. We must, when a being is born, ultimately respect their sovereign space. And their sovereign space is their physicality. That is a very definable sovereign space. And sexuality, I'm sorry everyone, but you are a sexual being. I don't think any of you that are watching now, whether it's the recorded version or this live version, that you have the ability, at least if you do, please teach me how, because I don't know how to do this, is to take my my genitals and leave them on the bedside table and then take off and enjoy, whatever is out there in the world. No, everything comes with me. So we need to first define that we're sexual beings. We're born with genitals and we die with genitals, and they partake in every single moment of our life. Doesn't mean that we're sexually active every single moment of our life, but it does mean that our sexuality is just something very natural, innate, just like the beating of our heart and the breathing of our lungs. So that's innate. and your sovereign space, this body that you have, even if you're on the call right now, touch your body and acknowledge that this is your sovereign space, and that you are the one who gets to define how you like to be touched, how you like to be loved, how you like to be sensual, how you like to be sexual. And no person, family member, community, teacher, organization, government, no one has the right to define that for you. But here's what's wrong with this picture, and why things like sexual assault and even debating what that is even going on. Because for most of us, we don't understand that this is our sovereign space, and it's always been defined by something external. You first learned your definitions from your parents. So you carry that definition. Then if there was a strong religious influence in your life, you also learned definition to look at your body through that lens. And then there was the definition, if you were exposed to sexual education in school, then there was the definition of what they provided there, which for the most part is like this much, and it's not very good. So, and then we learn through the media our worth, who we are as sexual beings. And because there's so much sexual violence in films and in a lot of music videos, and just we are inundated day in and day out with acts that are not reverent, that are not respectful, that are actually using our sexuality and our bodies as a currency. I want you just for a second, and this is an important point, so I want you to consider this. Have you ever bargained to be in relationship with someone, or to maybe get ahead in a job? In any way in your life, have you ever used your sexuality, your sensuality as a way to get ahead? And if you have, that's perfectly normal, because it's expected behavior. We live in a world that has transformed this innate birthright into a commodity, into a currency. And we don't really respect commodities. We don't revere commodities. So that right there, in terms of perhaps shifting how you self-define and how you orient yourself in this world, we first have to look at this pattern of, wow, you know, I really did give of myself in ways that weren't great for me, purely because I didn't see that I had more value to offer. So, and this happens for men and women. You see it a lot more with women, but men also do it. So some great comments happening, and I'm going to come back to those in a little bit. Okay, so I just want to stay on my topic, and then I'll come back to your comments because they're really awesome. But if you do have a question, pop them in there as well, because I would love to have a dialogue with you. So I just want to complete my, so Adri says, yeah, exactly, it's happened to me. Yes, so it is so common, we do it automatically, okay? So if we are domesticated, which we all are, if we're socialized by this culture to not have the idea of sexual sovereignty, to not know that that your body is your domain. And this might be a painful thing to say, but I work with a lot of women, tens and tens of thousands of women around the world, and a very common current with these ladies is a lot of them started to feel disrespected, their bodies disrespected at a very young age, whether it was through sexual abuse at home, incest, or even just, you know, friends grabbing their genitals without permission, that kind of thing. So that's really important to notice how prevalent this is. And I want to make a point of how prevalent lack of respect and aggression is towards our bodies. And the reason I want to make that a point is that so that you understand that it's not necessarily a fault of yours when you feel afraid, when you shut down, when you don't know how to stand for your boundaries and say, no, you will not talk to me like that, and you will not touch me ever. So let me share a little story, because I did not escape sexual violence at all. I've had many episodes throughout my life that I can map out, but I want to talk about the use of our voice when something is happening and we get afraid. And here's the pain point of this story. So before I get into the story, we are taught that our instinctual nature is low, is bad, is something we shouldn't trust. And so we become nice girls. And what happens to nice girls is that their lioness is kind of put to the side or caged or even tranquilized a little bit. But it's the very act of our instinctual nature that keeps us tuned in. So let me share my story, and then I'll share why this story is being presented here. So here I am. I'm a young woman. I'd say like 19, 20, in that age range. And I used to hitchhike all the time in Canada, especially because I would go on Vancouver Island to try and go to other little islands. And the process is, if you don't have a lot of money, you're not going to rent a car, and there's really not a lot of public transportation. And people were aware that people hitchhiked back then. So you could get great rides, and people were very friendly. But you have to understand the stretch of road. There was a stretch of road between Nanaimo and Hornby Island, this stretch, that there's nothing. There's no people, there's no homes, there's no towns, there's nothing. And I got picked up by a man who, for the most part, I got a lot of rides from men, and they were all great. Friendly, helpful, protective, wonderful men. But this particular man picked me up. And he picked me up in a stretch of road that I knew if I got out of the car, it would be very hard to get another ride, because there were very few rides. It was cold and wet, because it's cold and wet in the winters of Canada. And I also knew that if I was in danger, there was really no one around, okay? So in this ride, we're just maybe 5 minutes into the ride, the man reaches over, puts his hand on my thigh, and he tells me that he wants me to give him a blowjob. And for some bizarre reason, instinct. I said, well, before I answer that question, that request, I have a question for you. Now, you have to understand, this is not premeditated. This is instinctual nature taking care of me. And so he looked a little startled, and I said, do you have a mother? Do you have sisters, female cousins? And he's like, well, yeah. I said, okay. Just for another quick question. I'm curious, how old do you think I am? And you understand, I was like 18, 19. He said, 13 or 14. Well, at that point, I go crazy. I just, every profanity comes out of my mouth, and I basically say, what? You have sisters, you have female cousins, you have a mother, you have women in your life. You think I'm 13 or 14 years old, and you're about to do what I think you want to do to me? What do you think about that? And I just go off on this guy. I'm being polite now, but just imagine a long slew of profanities, and I am pissed off. Intense energy, strong energy. This man started to cry. He started to cry, and he felt very ashamed, because it became real to him that what he was about to do wasn't okay. And it turned out that he actually drove me an extra half an hour's distance from where he was going to originally drive me to. He apologized, and I'm imagining that in his life, if he ever thought again of imposing his sexual needs and desires on a woman, he probably would remember that moment and ask permission, or just maybe ask in a different way. Because desiring sexual experience is natural, but taking it from someone is not okay. And here's the thing, people. If we just take things, especially around sexuality, and this is true for women towards men and men towards women, it goes in both directions. If we just take and we don't really show up with our hearts, and we're not in reverence, we're not asking permission, we're not respecting the beautiful body that is ours and the other person, we are beggars. And we will never receive the true, rich, powerful gift of the genuine offer of yes, a true yes. I would love to have that experience. We cheat ourselves. So then the question begs, in a culture that's so afraid of sexuality, in a culture where being a sexual being is natural, but we've repressed it so much that it has to pop up in these disrespectful ways, in these scary ways, and then we don't give young people strong enough orientation to go, this is not okay. I was 2 or 3 years old the first time my parents said, you can enjoy your body as much as you want, because I did. I really loved my body. But never, ever, ever let someone else, especially a big person, touch you. It's not okay, and you tell us right away. They taught me boundaries right away. But we don't teach kids that. Instead, what we do with kids, we say, go kiss, Uncle so-and-so or Auntie so-and-so. And sometimes that very aunt or that very uncle is actually abusing that child, and we're forcing that child to interact with this person. So we're teaching the child that their own sovereign space isn't their own, and that is not okay. So, taking a breath, because that was a big, right? What we can do now is we can start to understand and reorient this domestication, this socialization that we've had that is not correct, and it's based on misunderstanding, and it's based on hurt. People who've been abused will naturally propagate more abuse. That's just kind of almost how the trauma needs to work itself out. It's not a great thing, but it's how it works. So you can even see it in monkeys. If one monkey gets hit, it'll walk over to another monkey and hit another monkey, and it just keeps being passed on. So when we've been hurt, most people who are abused will either end up in the polarity of perpetually attracting more abuse, or they'll end up in the polarity of the aggressor. And so that is painful, and that is a disassociated human being. And so what we want is to give everybody a chance to understand that how we were socialized wasn't very helpful, and to give everyone a chance to have a new orientation. Because if we're going to live in a world that, I'm sorry, but sexual violence and sexual assaults and sexual disrespect is not going to go away like that. It's just not. So how can we live in the world where we can feel safe, where we can feel clear, where we can feel our living truth moment to moment, and know what to say, and know how to take care of ourselves, and know how to support someone else? Because trust me, when I see a woman who's being doesn't look good on a metro or I don't know, somewhere in the public place, if I'm seeing something that's not okay, I actually interfere. I kind of break what's going on. I say, hey, girlfriend, long time I haven't seen you. What's going on? Are you okay? Is this all good? Just sort of have a conversation. I ignore the person who's bothering her. And so to be able to do that, to stand for ourselves and to stand for another, is really important. Adri says she interferes too. Fantastic. Yay. I just want to see if there's some other comments here, because I've said a lot and I want to keep going. Nice girls don't stand for themselves, from Sadi. Yes. Good personal example from Alim. Thank you. Yeah, so what I want to say now around this, because it's huge, is let's go into sexual sovereignty. Because here's the deal. If we are constantly in a reaction to life, we're not very creative. So here's what it looks like. So I'm afraid because there is unsafe people in the world. So now I'm going to assume that every man I see is unsafe. It's an assumption. It's not true. But every man that I see, I project this, they're not safe, they're going to attack me. And so I walk around in fear as a victim of that fear. Maybe nothing's ever happened to me, but I'm already victimized by this fear. And what happens with animals? Have you ever approached an animal and you've been afraid? What do? They'll growl or bark at you. Animals instinctually know that if there's fear around, something isn't good. That's still true for human beings. So if you're afraid, it can actually elicit sometimes even violent behavior in other people, which is really bizarre, I think. But it's just what I've noticed in my life. And trust me, I've been in a lot of unsafe places because I love to travel. When I was younger, I would hitchhike a lot, and I would end up in very poor communities and just really strange parts of cities that I wouldn't know as a traveler. And they were not sexually safe places. And how would I be in those places? I couldn't cower and walk around like, oh my God, I'm going to get hurt. No, I had to be in a place where I was aware, my instincts were aware, and that I knew that I could take care of myself. And what does that look like? So I just want to see, there's a couple questions here. So how else do you interfere? Would you mention some examples? Okay, I'll go back to that, Nira. This is the safety pin stance. Protect each other, stand up for each other. So solidarity, personal responsibility. This is what we can do on a very personal level. Yes. Thank you, Judith. Beautiful contribution. So I want to tell you something that was very helpful to me. Very helpful. One of the things is that I learned to say no. It sounds ridiculous, but it's so powerful, and you must learn to say it in small moments. So if there is ever a bigger moment, that no is so powerful that your body actually can enact it. So here's what it looks like for me. So imagine I'm 18. I don't know anything really. I'm kind of fresh in the world. I'm hitchhiking through Europe with my girlfriend. We have no money. We arrive in the middle of the night in this little Spanish seaside town. And there's nothing open, so we can't even get a place to sleep. So we decide we're going to go sleep on the beach and we'll get a place the next day. So as she and I are walking, it's like 2 a.m, towards the beach with our backpacks on, obviously foreigners, obviously 2 women, young women, we get surrounded by a gang of men who have ill intent. Now, I had already learned to say no. So I was already taking the stance of no, go away. And I'm speaking English, though they're Spanish speaking. They're pretending they're not answering, but I'm speaking English and no, go away. Well, actually being a lot more profane than that. So I'm saying no, go away. We don't want you near us. And they just start tightening their circle. And I kind of place myself so my girlfriend's slightly behind me, and I pick out the alpha in the group. And I look at him and I'm telling him, go away, we don't want to interact, leave us alone. And I don't know what he says in Spanish because I don't understand it, but he made one mistake. He tried to touch my girlfriend. And in that moment, this is not premeditated. I didn't even know martial arts at this point. I learned it later. In that moment that he went to touch her, I broke his nose. It was so fast. But my no came through my body and went, no. I broke his nose. I didn't even know how to break a nose, but there it was. It was broken. There was blood everywhere. He starts to swear in English. So I knew then he understood English. It dispersed the gang. They left because obviously they were looking for victims and not women who would break their noses. But it taught me something very powerful in my instinctual body, that this sovereign space, that I could trust her, I could trust my animal. And I've been in many other of these kinds of situations because I used to not be as aware, and I would put myself in settings and situations that weren't great. I could tell you many stories, but I just want to stay with this. So yes, our no, learning to say no right now, you need to learn, just even say it with me. No. Someone wants to be like, you're so beautiful. Would you like to have coffee with me? Wow, thank you. But no. You could be polite about it. You don't need to be mean about it. Someone does come kind of aggressive in your space. Hey, nuh-uh. You're not coming any closer. You need to practice even with your friends. Just say, hey, I'm not comfortable saying no. I feel like I'm not being a nice person when I say no. Would you be willing to let me practice no? Because if you have a powerful no, it will give your body, your instincts, permission to then act when it needs to. And hopefully you never need this. But here's the secret. Yes, I was very naive back then. That's true, Rick. But here's the secret. When you know your no and you trust your instincts, and I would say if you don't trust your instincts, go and do a self-defense class. You will get in touch with those instincts. It is worth it. You may never ever once use their skills, but what will happen, because you're learning a strong no and you're learning to trust your body, is you're going to walk around with this presence that does not invite abuse. So that's really important. It's so important. If you actually inform yourself and look at what kind of profiling happens for abusers or people who do sexual assault and these kinds of things, they are looking for victim stances, not people who are walking strong with open shoulders, chin is up, and if you meet their eye, you have eye contact and you nod. You're not smiling, but you say, I see you, and you keep walking. You're not aggressive, but you're like, I see you. Because sometimes ignoring people actually makes them more interested. So I'm not here to teach you all these skills, but I am here to reorient you to something called sexual sovereignty. And I have to share my personal story because it's important that you know that I've actually lived through some very difficult moments in my life. And I've learned from them, and I've witnessed my sister and my niece and, you know, just the women in my life and even some men in my life, the result of that aggression. So we live in aggressive worlds. We need to have a strong orientation that keeps us, this space, sovereign. And that's your responsibility, because no one will do it for you. No one will do it for you. You have to claim that birthright. And you actually, I feel very strong about this because there are people in this world right now where they live, they have no rights when it comes to their body. So we, living in a world where we can actually claim that sovereign truth, we have the responsibility to act it out on behalf of everyone else as well. Because our living example, it's like limbic resonance. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a way that mammals communicate without words. So our limbic resonance, what we embody, affects everyone around us. You being in your sovereign space will teach everyone around you that they can also be in their sovereign space. Your boundaries will teach everyone around you that their boundaries are worthy of respect and worthy of acknowledgement. So sexual sovereignty, you were born into that, but you must claim it. You must exercise it. You must actually exercise this right. So I want to look at a couple comments, and then I'm going to come back and we'll look at ways we can exercise this together. Okay, just a second. So body language is important. I feel that I wish it was not a thing where we have to walk around defensive or pulling down our feminine. Okay, I want to address Stephanie's comment, and then I'm going to address Adri's comment afterwards. Okay, so first Stephanie's comment. I don't know if you've read my book, but there's a book that I wrote called Emergence of the Sensual Woman, and there's a chapter in the book that deals with succulence in a barren world. We live in a conditioned world. We live in a world that is conditioned to strip all of this aliveness and juiciness from us. It's just how it is. But we don't have to be victims to that. So the practices that I teach women is to help them remember, A, that they are sovereign beings, that their bodies, their sexuality is their domain, that they matter. And then I teach them, I show them that there are ways of maintaining our radiance and our femininity even in environments that are completely hostile. But here's what we don't know, because our living examples of femininity and radiance and beauty is all extroverted. It's all explicit. But when I'm in a situation where it's not feeling safe, or it's not appropriate, or there's just something going on that my animal picks up that's like, not so great, then what's really important then is I don't necessarily shut down myself as a woman, because my femininity, my receptivity, my connection to life, my sensuality is actually, my instinctual nature is what's going to keep me safe. It's actually informing me very clearly what's happening. If I shut that down, all that information shuts down, and now I'm not capable of actually interfacing with reality, the real reality, not my projected idea of reality. So I need to actually keep that intact. But what I do is it's like I bring it right deep into my core. So I don't shut it down, but it's just reserved to my sovereign space. It's for me alone. And saying no and having strong boundaries and strong posture and all of those things does not mean that we're less sensual or less feminine. I mean, have a look at a lioness, just for an example. You wouldn't mess with her. Look at her presence. She's deeply relaxed. She's just laying there. But you know that if you tried to hurt her cubs or come into her space unwelcomed, she would definitely roar and let you know that is not okay. We need that instinctual nature intact, everyone. We need it intact. We've got to just come back into relationship with it, as frightening as it can be. And that's actually one of my life's work, is to encourage and inspire women and men and children to have a deep relationship with this instinctual part of ourselves, because that part of ourselves took care of us for way longer than this part. Okay? So we need to respect that our bodies are animals, they're instinctual, it's a sovereign space, and she picks up things faster than you can notice, because you're looking at life through your filters. Okay, so that was one comment. I need to go back up. Oh my goodness, there's so many comments. Oh, awesome. I love it. Love it. Okay. Adri says sexual assault can also be energetic. It's not only physical. And that's when things get even more blurry, and we need to be even more aware. So as I explained earlier, there's this thing called limbic resonance. And the science behind that, the theory behind that, is that we are actually open-circuited, that mammals are open-circuited in their nervous system. What that means is we require other mammals to kind of complete the circuit. And so you see that when mother is close to the baby just being held by mother learns how to digest and sleep and all the functions of life. She's not telling the baby. The baby is learning by tuning in to the mother's body and the mother's system. This stays with us throughout life. So if you are in a situation where you feel aggressed more on an energetic stance, it's very important to take note of that. Now, I've had this at a party. I was at a party and I was sitting next to this person, nice person, not doing anything weird, not touching me, not even really looking at me, but something about their presence was it was aggressing my body in ways that were not okay for me. I just really felt uncomfortable. So what would you do? Do you just keep sitting there? Do you turn to the person and go, do you say, like, quit that weird energetic shit? Not really. Not always. Maybe if it's appropriate. Maybe if you have already a relationship. I did not have a relationship with this individual. So what did I do? I just took a moment to close my eyes and feel myself, and I said no. And I pushed my own presence, my awareness, into every part of my being so that no one else could be in there. Just me. I was like, no, this is my space. I claimed my space in that moment. And then the next thing I did is I got up and I walked somewhere else and had an interaction with other people. And actually had a great time at that party, and that person never actually really sought me out or did anything weird. So that was a minor thing, because they're not always big things, but we must learn that people are not necessarily going to change just for us. But we can take care of ourselves. We can go, no, this is my space, and kind of fill our space with ourselves, we can physically get up and leave. I've left a room with a girlfriend who was abusing me because she was so angry at me. She was yelling and screaming, just taking her anger out at me. And I said, you know what? I appreciate you're angry. I can't really be of service to you while you're yelling and screaming at me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm leaving. And when you calm down, I'm open to having a discussion with you. And I left because I know for me, anger freaks me out. When people start yelling and screaming and throwing stuff, I don't like it. I feel scared. So I, as a sovereign being, must take care of myself in the way that feels true and right for me. I don't have to do it anyone else's way. I don't have to be polite. I don't have to be anything. And if that means that you just excuse yourself and have to go to the bathroom or whatever thing you need to do to leave and catch your breath and get grounded in your sovereign space, do it. You have to do that. No one will do it for you. So that's part of the responsibility of being a sexually sovereign being is, one, notice what's actually going on and what is your relationship to that. What's happening? Are you uncomfortable? Are you happy? What is happening? Are you feeling scared? And as soon as you feel off, you have to claim your sovereign space. Because what happens to a lot of women, I'm not sure if it's true for men, but I'm assuming it is. But I work predominantly only with women, so I'm not certain. But for women, when we get scared, we often leave our bodies. We take off. And then the body's kind of left there kind of not knowing what to do. And then we freeze. And when we freeze, that's when not nice stuff happens. So that's unfortunately part of social conditioning. We must learn that as soon as something's off, we act. If you look at an animal, you come near the animal and they don't like you, they move, they do something, they act. It's natural. And you might feel a little insulted, but the animal doesn't care. The animal's only orientation in that moment is to make sure that it feels like its own sovereign space is back to feeling safe. It doesn't apologize for that. And you shouldn't either. Okay? Very, very important. So let me just scroll through a few things. So Dawn says, I regret not saying no when I want to. Okay, yeah. So let's say that all the times in your past where you didn't say no, there's some sadness around that. And now what you get to do, instead of reacting to that, you get to choose. This is about choice, everyone. Choice. Your choice. You get to choose, yes, but now I'm choosing to live and act out my birthright as a sexually sovereign being. And this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to first acknowledge my own no here in my heart. Even if I don't say it out loud, I'm just going to go, no, don't like this. And then you're going to remember, maybe and maybe not, because sometimes we don't. So you're going to just have to keep practicing, because this is an indoctrinated behavior, so we got to practice a new behavior. But just first acknowledging that no, and then being awkward about it and going, no. Maybe it's around something small and it's uncomfortable. You're like, wow, okay, I'm just practicing to say no. And I kind of exaggerated, I'm sorry, but I really need my space. So that we don't walk around in a reactionary, polarized place where we're either numb and shut down and can't respond, or we're uber hyper reactive and just think that everyone's out to get us and we're very aggressive towards everyone, because that also keeps us from having real, beautiful, dropped-in experiences with genuine, kind, loving human beings. And we need that. So the second part is to find in your own circle safe, true people where you can start to map in your own being the feeling of what it is to be respected. And sometimes, with my really good friends, we always ask, is it okay that I really feel like giving you a neck massage? But I ask first. I ask. And sometimes we're like, actually, not right now. Back off. So part of the practice is not just learning to say no, it's also learning to ask permission in your interactions with other people, especially children. How many of you just kind of grab kids and kiss them and like come in and start petting them? Or an animal, you just come in and start petting the animal. Maybe you just like startle the animal. These are all ways in which we personally are disrespecting the sovereign space of others. So we must track that too. And the more you do that, the more you'll claim your own space as well. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so just going to look at a few more. Instinctually fierce and sensually vibrant from Dana. Yes. Source from within, not performing out. Beautiful. Rick is asking, is it animal instinct or intuition? Great question. I don't often really separate the two. There can be refinements and separation, but my animal nature, if you can understand this one thing, our need to belong as a human being is so huge, it's so innate that we will do anything, including selling ourselves. Remember I said sexuality earlier in the video. I was talking about how we use our sexuality as commodity and currency. So we want to be able to allow, instead of this need to belong to a group or a family or a person, we need to actually understand that we belong to life. That's the greatest orientation that you can have, is that you belong to life. So if you belong to life, you don't have to bargain with anyone or any group or anything in exchange to belong, because you no longer have to like behave in ways that are out of your own integrity. So to be instinctual is actually just to be in right relationship with yourself and with life. And when you belong to life, if you look at any natural creature, and I spend a lot of time in the wilderness and I know this to be true, all these interspecies live really peacefully together, and they all obey the law of spaciousness. They all obey it. They all respect it. So, for example, if this animal needs this much space from this one, whenever this one moves in, this one will move out to maintain that law of spaciousness. You can even see that animals also know when, say, a lion is hunting and they notice, okay, the lion's already focused on this one creature, they'll just go back to doing what they're doing. They won't even run away because they're aware in the law of spaciousness that's no longer a threat. The threat is over there. They're very, very tuned in. It's amazing. They don't waste energy. So our instinctual nature is tuned into the environment. It's tuned into everything around us, which can be painful sometimes because we live so compressed and on top of each other, and there's a lot going on, and we're actually open circuited beings. Remember the limbic resonance thing? So we pick up a lot of things, and that can be overwhelming. This is why I suggest spending time alone and spending time in nature if you want to know your own nature, if you want to get comfortable with what you're genuinely picking up and what's an actual projection. Okay, so our instinctual nature will always respond, but because we've been socialized to mistrust it, it's almost an instant shutdown. Okay, so I want you, as an invitation, as something you can take home and practice, I want you to learn in playful ways, say with a friend or family member, just to let go sometimes when you want a little bit of space, just for fun. It's like just make it a game. Practicing the no, practicing the growl, practicing ways of just noticing when you get a sensation in your body, notice it. What is it? Something's too close to my space. Do or no or ask. I just need a little more space. Thank you. Being able to establish that will heal your relationship with your instinctual nature and will allow you to start trusting what you're picking up and discerning, is it actually true, or am I just making this up? Okay, so that's really important part of the training. So the instinctual part of our nature is what's, if you can imagine the web, you're related to all things in all time and space. That's picking it up. Intuition is very similar as well. But intuition is something that will be like Oh, here's a very quick story on intuition, keeping me safe. So I'm every night I have a job. So I leave the job, and every night I take the same bus, and then I walk the same exact path down this back lane to my house. It's like a shortcut every night. My employer works for the police. She's an operator at the police station. And she knows my path because she works for the police, she asks for those details. So she knows I take this bus, and she knows I take this back lane, and she knows approximately what time I should be home by. So she freaks out because at approximately the time that I should be walking in that same back lane, she gets a call, she's the operator, of screams and a woman being hurt, and actually it turned out she was raped and murdered right there in the path that I normally take. Now, what happened with me? She thought it was me, but it wasn't. For the first time in doing this for months and months and months, for the first time, without even thinking, it wasn't a thought, I just decided, randomly it felt like, to take the long way home. And I didn't argue with it. And it saved my life. And I have many moments like that. So intuition is also connected to all time and space. It knows things. And the only way that we can learn to really listen to our intuition is through practice. It's the practice of taking time to be at home in your own space and taking time to discern what your projected thoughts are and your beliefs are and what's actually true. And intuition doesn't speak in sentences. It could be a feeling state, could be a flash of something. You could wake up one day and go, I need to get the hell out of here, and you don't know why. And you just do, and then you find out later that something weird happened there. Great. So again, this is not a course on instinctual stuff and in intuitional stuff. This is a discussion, a talk, but I do feel like I needed to answer some of your questions here because it's so important. Oh my God, there's so many amazing comments. I love it. Rebecca, this is such safe wisdom. Claim my space, claim your space. Fill our beings with our individual power. Leave no space for disrespect. It is our personal responsibility to claim our bodies as our own. Yes, thank you. Sadie, thanks for the anger tip. I know how to walk away with grace now. Beautiful. I love it. Adri, when we're scared, we leave our bodies. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. So I want to talk a little more about that in a moment. Freeze comes from fear. Shake your body. Melt into the feeling. That's from Sadi. Beautiful. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Oh, wow. This name. Hobri. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't say your name properly. It's a really cool name. The conditioning to dissociate as females when we're scared helps me understand my own freeze and remove some shame. Cool. Got some more framework around that. Beautiful. Here's the thing too, because you mentioned shame, and shame is part of our social conditioning. Shame is used to give us moral kind of guidance, but we don't need it. If we live in right relationship with ourselves and with life, we can act and live a shameless life, which has much more integrity and impeccability and truth than those of us who are living in shame, because when we're in shame, we hide and we disassociate and we project. So we're not actually genuinely present to what's going on. I did a course called Shameless Surrender, where I covered a whole day's worth of what it's like to live in this world, like the purpose of shame, the purpose of letting go of shame and entering shamelessness, and then the purpose of surrender. And it's so important to learn these skills because they're anti our conditioning. And we're so profoundly conditioned, it's like a fish in water. We just don't know that we're in the water. Okay, so we belong to life from Adri. Nura, I tend to go from not allowing anything to totally allowing everything and everybody to do what they want. What's the difference between not judging and recognizing when something is not okay? Ah, beautiful question from Nura. All right. So what's the difference between not judging and recognizing when something is not okay? It's called discernment. Judging is making something good, bad, right, wrong. Discernment is a relationship where you get to look at something and go, that's not for me, or that is for me. But not because you add a value of good, bad, right, wrong to it. And discernment is far more useful than judgment, because judgment often is inaccurate. So becoming discerning is a huge skill to a sovereign person, to a sexually sovereign person. We need to be discerning. And it's actually important to have opinions. It's important to have an orientation to what's true in your body and your own truth. Maybe you're a touchy-feely person and you love to hug a lot of people. So you have less issues with physical touch than someone who's like totally not into being hugged all the time. That's both of those orientations are fine, but you need to be true to your own orientation and to discern, right now in this group, I can tell these people are all like huggy types. They all studied massage and they're all super comfortable with the body. So I'm going to be able to be more of my touchy-feely self in this group. In another group, it's like, ooh, these people are really uncomfortable with their bodies, and they actually kind of think that if touch is related to sex and kind of instantly, I'm not going to engage that. But it's not a shutting down. It's just like an understanding of the environment that you're in. So discernment is very important, and exercising discernment all the time is thrilling. All right, so I want to end in a moment. If you haven't yet commented, and if you are watching this as a replay, your voice is so important. Your opinion matters. And so I invite you to write comments, even if this is a replay, because I read every one of them and I will answer all of them. I love the interaction that we have. This is how we, as human beings, through this kind of communication and reorientation, we change the world. It's revolutionary. And I'm so thrilled and excited that you're part of my world, that we can have these kinds of dialogue, that we can touch sometimes things that are edgy and difficult together. And we may not always agree with one another, and that's fine too, because it's not about a world of zombies that are just like all doing and thinking the same way. No. But I think there are universal principles that we can choose to explore together and see how they fit. So all of this talk about sexual sovereignty are in really coming and claiming this physical space, our physicality, is crucial. It's crucial to you feeling safe, and it's actually crucial to you being safe to others. You need to understand that. You being safe to others, you're more safe for others when you are in your body, when you have clear boundaries, when you know and can discern what's true for you, and you communicate that. I would much rather have a friend who's like, hey, Saida, I know you love to hug all the time. I don't. Okay, cool. How do you like to feel loved? I just love when someone says they love me. Okay, great. I can do that. So being a safe person for others is equally the home play of exercising your right to being a sexually sovereign person in this world. And the last thing I want to say is, right now you have the opportunity to exercise a right that a lot of people on this planet don't. And so the more you do that, you make it more of a global consensus so that we can actually change. We can change the global consensus on sexuality, on what it means to have a body. We can change that. And we do that by individually exercising our right to be here, to claim ourselves. So that's what I want to say about that. If you have any other questions, what I'd love is that you leave them in the comments below here. And that's really all I want you to do, is join the conversation, leave me comments. It's going to continue after this. I just want to read a couple more comments from the people here that are live with me, and then we're going to go. So thank you for taking the time. So just a moment. Rick, have you ever been wrong with your animal instinct? Okay, that's a great question. I'll come back to that. Thank you for sharing your story. You've introduced me to a new way of looking at a few things. I'm going to start with the nose, and I love the teeth and the claws. Awesome. And Anne says, thank you, Saida. So I want to go back to Rick's thing, and then we're going to end the call. So have you ever been wrong about your animal instinct? No. Because here's the thing. Animal instinct isn't judging. It's just knowing that something isn't right. And even in the safest situations, sometimes some things are not right. And so we must just at least have the grace to go, okay, hang on a second. Am I safe? Is what's going on? What's okay? What am I picking up on? Sometimes you're just picking up on the distress of someone else. It's not your own. That's happened to me before. So it's very important when you get, at least now, because we don't have a clear relationship with our instinctual nature because of our conditioning, to just give our animal permission to show up in messy ways, and just make a promise to yourself that you'll listen. At least take a breath and go, okay, what's up? And listen. That's how we're going to heal our relationship with this part of our being. And then over time, because you have confidence in that part of yourself, then the messages will get clearer and clearer. You'll know your own projections and be able to clear that. You'll know your own judgments and you'll clear that. And you'll know and start to create the life that you want to have as an experience as well. You're going to choose your social experiences maybe in a wiser way, in a funner way for yourself. Okay, I want to read a few last comments and then we're going to go. So from Dana, so good, power of creating safety in the world by embodying it ourselves. We have so much power to influence the world. We know it's possible. Thank you, Saida, for embodying this and modeling this and sharing. Can't read more, but I'm sure there's more to that comment. Dee says, thank you, Saida. Rebecca, I love what you're doing here. It's so right and good and needed. I want this conversation to be happening in elementary, middle, and high school settings. It's a conversation that needs to be happening. Rebecca, I agree. So let's keep having this conversation. Let's actually change the consensual reality together. Why not? It's the only way it's going to happen. Heidi, thank you for this clarity and vibrancy. I have a 6-year-old daughter and want to emulate what you're discussing. I will play the replay for my husband too, as dads need to really get, yes. I learned most of my boundary things from my father. The masculine is, our own masculine energy learns from the masculine examples around us when we're little girls. So fathers and cousins and uncles and friends, you have a role to help younger people understand and feel strong and good about having boundaries. I mean, it's so clear to me. It's so clear to me. My father said, never, ever, ever let an adult touch you, ever. And you tell me immediately. And I had an experience as a 12-year-old girl where this man tried to rape me in an elevator, and he said if I made a sound, he would kill me. And if I told anyone, he would kill me. And the second he touched me, I screamed like a berserk banshee, and I got away. But that's because my father over and over and over told me, use your voice, be loud, use your nails, punch, bite, do everything. He would just give me full permission to be a wild, instinctual being to protect my sovereign space. And this, men and women, but really from the masculine, it's so healthy for you to hold that living truth for the women and young boys in your life. So global change, yes, begins with intention to listen to our instinctual body, from Dana. Rick, you're a keen educator and role model for women. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for being here. It's really beautiful to have men also jump on this conversation. Rosemary Joy, thank you, Saida. Annie Lee, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Let's keep this discussion going. If there are things I didn't touch on, then I can do another Facebook Live with you. So feel free to also leave some suggestions of where you would love to go with this conversation so that we can together change our living experience from one that is contracted and feeling unsafe to one that's empowered and clear and enjoying this beautiful life that we have. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. You're very, very precious to me. Have a really beautiful day. Bye-bye.